Yeah, it's true that India has done a lot in the sector. In fact, the NSSO study shows that more than 91% of the population habitation is already covered with safe drinking water, and less than 3% of people are required to travel more than 30 minutes, which is a distinct improvement over the last 4 decades. But still, there are some major problems. First, of course, is that we decided to change our definition from habitation to population. The moment we change the definition from habitation to population, the concept of uncovered villages, partially covered villages, slipped villages come in. So that is an issue that we are handling now. The second important issue which has emerged is the question of quality. Over a period of time, the groundwater in India has been exploited tremendously. So we are required to go deeper into the ground to get water. And that brings in all kinds of contaminations, primarily chemical contaminations like fluoride, arsenic, iron. That is one issue. The second issue is the growth of urban areas in the country. The urban areas are expanding, so we have lots of peri-urban areas. And most of these peri-urban areas have problems of sanitation. They don't have a proper sanitation coverage. That brings in biological contamination. Third important program that we have seen is the vast industrialization that is taking place. Most of these huge industries come up in the rural areas. So they also bring in questions of contamination. So both biological, chemical contamination is an issue. So that what we call the quality affected habitations. That is the second major issue. Third major issue, of course, is the source sustainability. Both the groundwater and the surface water sources get dried up because of excessive demand, and particularly large parts of the country during the summer months we have this problem. So it's not that the water availability is at the same level throughout the year. That is the third important issue that we have to handle. The fourth important issue is the department or the sector has been run by departments. So the participation of the community or the stake of the rural communities, the rural stakeholders like the Panchayat Raj institutions have not been very high. Since the stakes have not been very high, their capacities have not been developed to that extent. Now we know that if the system is to become sustainable, the participation of the local community is very crucial, and that's a weak point. So these 3-4 are major issues that we are confronting today in the sector. When you come to the sanitation sector, the sanitation sector, of course, started with a very, very low base. Over the last 40 years, our coverage has gone up, some people say from 1% to almost about 60%. Give or take a few percentages here and there, the coverage has been there. But even the residual 40% is a huge physical number, practically 50% of the whole world. How do you cover that? Because the easier thing has been done. It is the more difficult one that leaves to be done now, that is left to be done now. So that's a big challenge. Even in those areas where the coverage has been there, because we have not been effective in changing the behavioral pattern, there has been slipbacks there also. So how do you make them, how do you bring in a permanent behavioral change so that sanitation becomes sustainable, becomes the second major challenge. The third, of course, is the overall solid and liquid waste management, which goes beyond the individual, which is more a community activity. The stake or the buy-in of the community in the sanitation sector is something which really needs to be addressed. So these three in the sanitation sector, I think, are the main issues that the country faces today. The perspective plan that we have prepared after a lot of consultation with various stakeholders, we spoke to administrators, we spoke to political leaders, we spoke to very active civil society members, we spoke to academia, we tried to consult almost every single stakeholder in the process. and we try to identify. So the issues that I have already mentioned are basically those issues which we are attempting to tackle in the new plan. So one, of course, is how do you ensure source sustainability? Bring in new scientific knowledge, provide them with new areas, and source sustainability is the primary issue that we wanted to. And the second important issue is participative community management. How do you bring in the community in a larger way, more involved, and maybe provide them with some kind of a encouragement through some kind of a devolution index? That is the second issue that we are trying to address. The third issue, of course, is the quality. Quality affected habitations have been given pride of place. How do you do that? So that is the third issue that we are trying to address in the perspective plan. The fourth issue, of course, is a simple matter of governance. How do you improve our governance structures? How do you improve the way the system is managed? How the operation and maintenance is done? Is there a scope of renovation and modernization? Now, is there some kind of a revenue stream that you can expect out of the supply that you are giving both in the water sector? So these are some of the issues that we are trying to address. And as an important aspect, we have also decided that, while this supply of drinking water is important, ultimately everyone aspires to have a tap connection in his household. So that is something which looks very daunting, but that is what we want to aim at. And that brings in a problem of unequal distribution or unequal coverage among the states. How do you address the unequal distribution of piped water supply coverage in the states is the other issue that we are trying to tackle in the perspective plan. My dream, which is, I'm happy to say, shared by many people who took part in the perspective plan preparation, is to provide good quality water on a regular basis, irrespective of the season and the time of the day, hopefully within the premises of an individual, if not at least within 50 meters of the individual household. That is the broad picture. When I say quality, obviously it has to conform to the standards of quality. Merely by saying that a covered source will not be sufficient. That's what we are saying now. The covered source, a source which is free from open, visible contamination, is a safe source. A quality which can be tested and found to be good quality in a lab. And supply which is adequate. We are defining it at about 70 liters LPCD, but it can be more. And third, of course, is, like I said, it's at your doorstep. That is the vision that we are looking at in the water sector. In the sanitation sector, of course, we are hoping that not only every single household will have a toilet of its own, that it shall also be used. We are also hoping that a large majority of the communities and the villages in India will have some kind of a solid and liquid waste management practice in place. That is the second hope that we have. And third, if possible, that all the health related matters, safe health practices, are also ingrained into their psyches. That is the kind of vision that we have in mind. You see, I always say that an example, a good practice should not only inform people but should also excite people. And unless you share good practices with other people and tell them how important it is, other people don't get excited. They say that, okay, one particular group on a controlled atmosphere might be able to achieve something remarkable or relevant. But maybe in my kind of conditions, we may not be able to do the same. So the compendium of good practices we have tried to identify. Number one, of course, it gives examples from all over the country. We have gone to the most difficult parts, like Koraput in Odisha, tribal dominated. And we have tried to show to people that if they can do something, you can also do. The sanitation compendium has a lot of examples of community participation. how the community have been able to take the leadership, and particularly the women and the children have been able to take the leadership, and in all over the country, and how it can be done, how a village can be, a community can be made open defecation free in 48 hours. Those examples have been given. When you come to water sector, which is a little wider, how new technologies have been improved, how revenue streams have been generated, how communities, village panchayats have come together to operate large multi-village schemes, how the states have been able to address public redressal, which is important. All these things have been given. So this example, if repeated again and again, then people will get inspired. Now that you have decided what are the issues and what are the methods of addressing them, the compendium only gives examples of the successful practices in implementation of the program. So, in a way, there is this is what we want to do for the entire country, or at least a large part of the country. Whatever has been done in a small isolated pocket. What we expect from the World Bank is they step in when there are new technologies to be introduced, new practices to be introduced, give us the technical assistance so that we can bring in innovations, and also try to give us some money, give the countries money where there is a dire need. So this is what we expect from the World Bank. So the intellectual, the technical support, and the particular, for a country like India, maybe it may not be very relevant, but yes, any financial support in these areas, particularly in the areas of drinking water and sanitation in the rural areas, is welcome. For the rest of the world, I think I'll refrain from saying anything, because I hope I'm given to understand that the compendium of practices that we have published is being well received in other parts of the world. So I hope it will inspire them, it will tell them what is happening in the country, and we are always available to respond to any queries from any part of the world. We shall be very happy to be of some assistance.